Just did a deep dive hyper focus into Rob's upbringing. Went down a rabbit hole and ended up on his mum's Facebook page. He grew up in Overland Park, KS, which was listed as one of the top three richest cities in America. So Statler, somebody that was once upon a time a 90-day fiance, decided to do a deep dive on Rob the Knob. And she has found out that he actually comes from a very rich background, which is quite interesting because now it makes things a bit more different, shall I say. But also continues here by saying, and looking at his family's pages, he would have a place to stay, he'd never be on the street, and he very doubtly had a hard, true life. But also on top of that, continues here with this one, Rob's mum, who would 100% never let him live on the streets, or whatever he said. His uncle is Jim Wayne, former project director of San Diego State Uni, and his other uncle is Donald Wayne, born, shall I say, a co-director at John Hopkins. He'd be fine, laugh my ass off. So Rob has been telling a lie. The whole storyline that Rob has been giving us has been nothing but a lie. The fact that his mom wouldn't even let him go homeless explains it all. This guy keeps talking about coming from the bottom and then bloody daddy da. And you know what though? Am I surprised by this information? No. Are you surprised? Should you be surprised? I don't know. But I tell you why I am not surprised, because for somebody who comes from a very lower beginning like myself, not necessarily to as lowest, not like to the extent that Rob portrayed himself to be, but for somebody that also had to work their way up to get to where I am now, do you ever hear me sit there and say, oh my God, life is so challenging, but you know, like, I've finally done it. Do you know what I mean? Like, people who come from a poor background, generally speaking, they don't scream about it. It obviously, it can be subjective because maybe some do. I'm not saying that they don't, but generally speaking, when they get themselves in a position where they at least have a home, they have a job, you know what I mean, and they're basically getting by, even if it's literally a what do you call it? Even if it's a paycheck type situation, generally speaking, they won't stress about it until somebody actually says something about it. They won't be the first one to moan about it unless somebody says something about it. And the way Rob always gets triggered so easily, if you ask me personally, that's not from somebody that comes from a poor upbringing. That's from someone that's trying to project it for his own benefit. I mean, look at it this way. It's like you get people who are actually from the hood, right? Then you get people who pretend that they're from the hood. You're always able to identify the person that's actually from the hood compared to the one that pretends that they're from the hood. You know what I mean? Because there's always a bit more dramatics behind it if you're not necessarily from the hood, give or take. But again, everything can be very subjective because it all really matters on the situation and the people involved, 100%. But I'm just saying personally, did I see this coming? No. But am I surprised? No. That's just the grand scheme of it. And also, to be honest with you, the fact that Rob always had money to be able to go out and do all these lovely things with Sophie before her even coming to the States, that also kind of said a lot of things, because for somebody that was always struggling, he definitely had a lot of money to always be out there doing things with her all the time. And let's be real, somebody that is struggling wouldn't have money to be doing half the things that he did with her, unless, of course, he's in some kind of credit card debt, which could be the possibility. But let's be real, though. If he was in some type of financial debt, Rob would have screamed that loud and clear. Why? Because he screams about everything else loud and clear. You see what I'm saying? So you can't tell me otherwise when it comes to this guy. But nonetheless, though, you guys let me know what you're thinking down below. Are you surprised that Rob the Knob has been lying this whole time about his upbringing? And to be fair, at the same time, this also answers another aspect. I have always been like, well, I don't think if Sophie was this bougie person, she really thought I don't think she would have ended up with somebody like him per se. And the fact that she always ended up with someone like him, I always said that kind of proves that maybe she's not that stuck up her ass. And maybe at the same time, she just wants to get the green card, right? But let's put this into perspective. Let's say Sophie really does know truly about Rob's, upbringing. And maybe that's another thing that is a reason why she stuck around with him. Because I mean, currently right now, people keep asking how have they broken up? Well, I can tell you this now, they actually technically haven't, because they have been seen together posting pictures of them pretty much being in the same building. And when I say the same building, I'm talking about a building that looks as if they are still living together, but just in a more fancy place. And I wonder how he got to that fancy place, because somebody who went from nothing, you're telling me he was able to do a quick turnaround so they can have a fancy place just like that? Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Nonetheless, though, you guys let me know what you're thinking down below, and we shall certainly talk about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course, peace.